It's that time. The house is finally quiet. You've done everything by the book. The warm bath, the full belly, the lights are low. You're making that soft shushing sound. You've become a master of this routine. And as you're lowering your baby into their crib, you see it. Oh, you see those heavy eyelids, the slow rhythmic blinks. They are right there, just on the very edge of sleep. A perfect little picture of peace. And then,
just like that, the eyes snap open. And they're not just open, they're wide. They're alert. The body that was so limp and heavy a second ago suddenly goes rigid. The back arches. And in a heartbeat, that beautiful, peaceful quiet is completely shattered. Your baby, who was so clearly, so undeniably exhausted, is now crying as if sleep is the most terrifying thing in the world. If you have ever lived through this moment, and I know so many of you have, you've stood by that crib and you've asked yourself this exact question. It just doesn't make any sense. It feels like a total paradox. And as you're standing there completely drained, listening to this protest, you can't help but wonder, what is going on? Is something wrong with my baby? Well, it turns out that question has a precise, scientific, and honestly a deeply reassuring answer. And once you hear it, I promise you will never look at bedtime the same way again. So, how do we start to unravel this? In this explainer, we're going to dive deep. We'll start with the bedtime paradox itself. Then we'll get into the actual brain chemistry that makes an exhausted baby suddenly fight sleep. After that, we'll uncover this ancient survival instinct that's hardwired into them. We'll also demystify those terrifying screams that can happen in the middle of the night. And finally, we'll completely reframe what's really going on when your baby resists rest. You know, every parent knows this fight, but it doesn't always look the same, right? For some, it's that intense, back-arching, full-throated cry. For others, it's this sudden, bizarre burst of energy. They start giggling and kicking, like they've got this second wind when they haven't even had their first. And of course, there's the classic. They fall asleep so peacefully in your arms, this warm, settled weight against your chest, only for their eyes to snap wide open, instantly alert the very second their little body touches the cool mattress of the crib. It can feel so personal, it can really feel like a test. Okay, so let's just get this out of the way right now, because this is probably the most important thing you're going to hear. What looks and feels like a behavioral problem is actually a biological imperative. Your baby is not doing this to you. Their little body, driven by these powerful, invisible forces, is doing this to them. This is not a failure of your parenting. It's a fundamental and in so many ways a brilliant feature of a developing human nervous system. To really get this, we need to go inside your baby's body and look at the chemistry that's at play. Because what we think of as tired in our adult brains works very, very differently in an infant's brain. For us, deep exhaustion usually leads to a pretty welcome surrender. But for them, it can trigger a full-on biological call to arms. So I want you to think of sleep pressure like a sleepiness piggy bank. From the moment your baby wakes up, their brain starts making these tiny deposits of a neurochemical that creates the feeling of tiredness. And the longer they're awake, the more deposits are made, the fuller that piggy bank gets, and the more pressure there is to fall asleep. Scientists call this homeostatic sleep pressure, and it's a completely normal, healthy process. But, as any parent knows, there's a catch. If your baby misses their natural sleep window, if that piggy bank gets too full, their system doesn't just register more tired. It panics. It interprets that intense fatigue as a life or death threat. I mean, in the deep, ancient wiring of their nervous system, that level of exhaustion sends a primal signal. Something is wrong. Danger is near. Do not fall asleep. Stay alert. And in response, their body floods the system with cortisol, the main stress hormone. And this is what creates that vicious cycle that so many of us get trapped in. The baby misses their sleep window. Their body perceives that fatigue as danger. Cortisol is released, which acts like a shot of adrenaline, and suddenly, you're not dealing with a sleepy baby anymore. You're dealing with a baby who is simultaneously exhausted and wired, a completely different and much, much more challenging neurochemical state. Now their body is literally fighting itself. The sleep pressure is screaming sleep, but that cortisol is screaming stay awake, making it almost impossible for them to relax. But it's not just about hormones. I mean, just for a second, imagine what a day is like for your baby. Every face they see is new data. Every sound, every light, every texture of their blanket is this massive wave of sensory information flooding a brand new brain. So by the time evening comes around, their nervous system is just completely saturated. A system that's been receiving input at that intensity all day doesn't just have a simple off switch. It has to discharge all that accumulated energy. the crying, the fussing, the flailing arms and legs, very often that's exactly what you're seeing, a necessary physical release of the day's stimulation.
But this isn't just about chemistry. To truly understand this fight, we have to look deeper into our shared evolutionary history. We have to remember that the crib, the separate nursery, this whole concept of a baby sleeping alone, these are extraordinarily recent inventions in the long, long story of humanity. Your baby's brain, however, is running on ancient software.
I mean, think about it. A human infant is the most helpless creature of any mammal at birth. They can't regulate their own body temperature, they can't find food, they certainly can't move away from a threat. So for hundreds of thousands of years, an infant's survival was 100% dependent on constant physical closeness to a caregiver. From the perspective of that ancient primal nervous system, sleep, the act of losing consciousness, isn't rest. It is maximum vulnerability.
And this right here is one of the most important reframes in all of parenting. So just let this sink in. Your baby is not being difficult. They are not trying to manipulate you. They are running a deeply embedded, non-negotiable survival program. Their nervous system is generating a genuine threat response to the idea of sleep itself, because its primary directive, written in its most fundamental code, is to maintain contact with you, the one person keeping them alive. And here is the most surprising and frankly just beautiful part of this whole story. Research has actually found that it's often the most securely attached infants, the ones with the most responsive, attuned, and loving caregivers, who protest the loudest at bedtime. And this isn't a paradox, it's perfect logic. Their developing nervous system has learned through thousands of tiny interactions with you that signaling works. Crying brings connection, protest brings your presence. They trust implicitly that you will come. So the baby fighting sleep the hardest is, in so many cases, the baby who is demonstrating their profound trust in you. But what about those other moments? The ones that are even more frightening because they happen after your baby is already asleep. I'm talking about that sudden, blood-curdling scream from the nursery at 1 a.m. that just shatters the silence. It's a sound that feels different from a normal cry. It sounds like pure terror. But to understand it, we need to distinguish between two very different events happening in your baby's sleeping brain. So the first thing to understand is that your baby's brain is doing its most intense developmental work during sleep. It's like trying to run a massive software update while you're still building the computer at the same time. It's forming neural pathways, consolidating memories, just growing at an explosive rate. In an adult, the brain has all this sophisticated wiring that keeps this intense neurological activity contained. But in a baby, that regulatory layer is still under construction. The scream you hear is often just a neurological spillover, the raw, unfiltered activation of a system working at full capacity, spilling outward into sound and movement. Now, this is a really crucial distinction to make. A nightmare happens during REM sleep, or active sleep, and that's usually in the second half of the night. During a nightmare, a child wakes up fully. They're aware of you, they know where they are, and they can often remember feeling scared. But a sleep terror, sometimes called by its Latin name, Pavor Nocturnus, is completely different. This happens during the deepest stage of non-REM sleep, usually in the first few hours of the night. And this is the most important part to remember. Your child is profoundly, deeply asleep, even if their eyes are wide open. They are not awake, and they will have absolutely no memory of it in the morning. And this is why you can't comfort them. It's one of the most disorienting and frankly heartbreaking experiences for a parent, holding your screaming child who doesn't seem to see you or hear you or feel your touch. They are not ignoring you. They are not beyond your reach because the fear is too intense. They are simply in a state of such deep sleep that the part of their brain that registers your presence, the part that processes your voice, your touch, your smell, is physiologically offline. It's like trying to talk to someone when their phone is completely turned off. The message just can't get through. So having looked at the chemistry, the ancient brain code, and the mysteries of those cries in the dark, let's tie it all together. Let's take this entire struggle and reframe it into something new, something that helps us move from a place of exhaustion and frustration to a place of just wonder and awe. Your baby's own nervous system doesn't yet have the internal wiring to regulate itself, to move from an overwhelmed, cortisol-flooded state back down into the quietness that sleep requires. That is your job. In these moments, you are literally their external nervous system. Your calm voice, your steady rocking, your heartbeat, you are the biological bridge they need to cross from a state of activation to a state of calm. And every single time you help them make that crossing, you are helping to build the internal wiring that will one day let them do it all by themselves. This means the fight isn't a disruption of their development, it is a sign of it.
The baby who suddenly starts fighting sleep at 5 or 8 months isn't regressing. No, they've just become cognitively sophisticated enough to understand what they're losing when the lights go out. You. This protest is not a problem that needs to be extinguished. It's a developmental milestone to be witnessed. It's a sign of their growing awareness and their deepening attachment to you. And this is perhaps the most profound way to think about your role. When your baby cries for you in the middle of the night, they are not just making an emotional demand. They are running a biological program that has one core purpose: stay connected to the regulator. In the ancient world their genes were shaped by, losing that regulator wasn't just uncomfortable, it was fatal. You are not simply a comfort to them. You are vital, life-sustaining infrastructure. So the next time you're standing in that dark room, listening to that protest, I want to leave you with this thought. What if this isn't a failure? What if this isn't a battle that you have to win or a crisis that needs to be managed? What if instead you have a front row seat to the most complex and incredible construction project on Earth, the building of a human brain? A brain that, even in its exhaustion, has already decided that you are worth staying awake for.